You never think much of the little things, the quiet moments, the empty streets, the feeling of being alone. But sometimes those things, they're not what they seem. This happened to me a few years ago, and to this day, I can't explain it. I can't explain what he wanted, how long he had been watching me, or what would have happened if I hadn't noticed him in time. The man who followed me home. It was late, past midnight, and I had just finished hanging out with some friends at a diner downtown. The place was close to my apartment, only about a 20-minute walk, so I decided to head home on foot. The streets were unusually empty. Even the bars on Main Street had shut their doors early that night, leaving the sidewalks eerily silent. At first I enjoyed the solitude, the cool night air, the dim streetlights, the rhythmic sound of my own footsteps. But then, something changed. I started to hear a second set of footsteps. At first I brushed it off as my own paranoia. Maybe I was just tired, maybe it was just the echo of my own steps bouncing off the buildings. But then, as I slowed my pace, the other footsteps slowed too. And when I stopped, they stopped. I turned my head quickly, scanning the empty street behind me. Nothing, just flickering streetlights and parked cars. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Someone was there, watching me. I started walking again, faster this time, and sure enough, the footsteps followed. I reached a crosswalk and glanced over my shoulder. That's when I saw him, a man. He was standing under a street lamp about half a block back. His clothes were dark, too dark to make out details. But what stood out the most was how still he was. He didn't pretend to be walking, he wasn't looking at his phone, he was just standing there, staring. I turned back to the streetlight, waiting impatiently for it to change, feeling my pulse quicken. When the light finally turned, I darted across. When I reached the other side, I looked back again. The man was gone. I let out a breath. Maybe he had just been a random guy waiting for a ride. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But just as I tried to convince myself, I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. The man was now standing at the opposite crosswalk. He had crossed the street, but I hadn't even seen him move. At that point, I wasn't taking any chances. I picked up my pace, walking as fast as I could without outright running. I took a sharp left down a side street, hoping to lose him. But the moment I turned the corner, I heard his footsteps break into a run. Panic set in. I took off sprinting. My apartment was only a few blocks away. If I could just make it there, I'd be safe. But the faster I ran, the faster he followed. His footsteps were heavy, rapid, and gaining on me. I turned down another street, hoping to throw him off, but as I glanced back, he was still there, closer now. I wasn't just being followed, I was being hunted. I reached my apartment building and nearly slammed into the front door. My hands shook as I fumbled for my keys. Come on! Come on! The footsteps were right behind me now. I could feel him getting closer, could feel his eyes locked onto me. At the last second, I shoved my key into the lock and turned it. The door swung open and I threw myself inside, slamming it shut behind me. Silence. I pressed my back against the door, heart pounding. I listened. No footsteps, no knocking, no sound at all. Slowly I turned and peeked through the peephole. He was right there, standing just inches from the door. His head was tilted slightly like he was listening, waiting for something. Then without warning, he smiled. Not a normal smile. A slow, creeping, unnatural grin that stretched too wide across his face. And then, he lifted his hand and waved at me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room clutching a kitchen knife waiting for something, anything to happen. But nothing did. By morning I finally gathered the courage to check the peephole again. He was gone. I convinced myself it was over, that it was just some deranged stranger playing a sick game, but deep down I knew it wasn't over. That night, as I climbed into bed, I felt something strange under my pillow. A note, written in smeared, uneven letters, it read, You're fast, but I'll see you again soon. The end.